When most people hear the word distribution, their minds immediately jump to, well, trucks, warehouses, the whole logistics game. And sure, that's part of it, but that's just scratching the surface. What if we started seeing distribution not as just a cost, but as a powerful strategic weapon, a tool you can use to build real, lasting value in the market?
So here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll start with the big idea, how distribution actually creates value. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of choosing your channel structure and deciding how wide you want to cast your net. After that, we'll talk about the inevitable drama, power, and conflict. And finally, we'll look at how channels change and grow over time.
So let me ask you this, and be honest. When you look at your own business, how do you see distribution? Is it just a line item on the P&L? A cost center you're always trying to shrink? Just the price you pay to get something from your warehouse into a customer's hands? Or is it something else entirely? Is it a tool, a powerful engine that, if you tune it just right with your brand and your product, can actually create value for your customers? Getting your head around that shift, that's the secret sauce. That's how you turn a simple cost into a real competitive edge. All right, let's get right into it. The core of any great strategy is what we call the optimal value proposition, or OVP. It's just a fancy way of saying, what's the unique value you bring to the table that makes customers choose you? And here's the kicker. Distribution isn't some separate thing you figure out later. No way. It's a core part of that value proposition, right up there with your product, your brand, and your price. When you get it right, your channel isn't just a delivery truck. It's a value creation machine. Because look, a distribution channel does so much more than just move boxes. I mean, think about it. It's where your brand comes to life. It's the difference between an anonymous online checkout and walking into an Apple store. Your channel is your salesperson, your payment collector, your information gatherer, and your returns department all rolled into one. If you're only thinking about the product delivery part, you are leaving a ton of value on the table. It's that simple. Okay, so this brings us to one of the first and biggest decisions you have to make. How are you actually going to reach your customers? And let me be clear, this is not just some operational detail. This choice will fundamentally shape your entire relationship with the people who buy your stuff. Basically, you've got three main paths you can go down. First, you can go direct. Think Apple's retail stores. You own the whole experience, top to bottom. Second, you can go indirect. This is your classic Coca-Cola model, where you work with wholesalers and retailers. You're leveraging their reach. And third, you can do a mix of both, a hybrid model. Like Apple selling in its own stores and through a place like Best Buy. This is getting super popular, but man, it can get complicated fast. And this is where the big trade-off comes in. When you bring in partners, those intermediaries, you get some huge benefits, right? You get scale, speed, market reach you couldn't dream of on your own. But, and it's a big but, you give up control. You're now one step removed from your own customer. You get less data back. And suddenly, you've got another company's goals to worry about, which can lead to, well, conflict. There's no magic bullet here. It's all about what trade-offs make sense for your strategy. All right, so once you've picked your basic structure, direct, indirect, or hybrid, the next big question you have to answer is about coverage. How easy should it be for people to find and buy your product? Do you want it on every street corner, or do you want to make it an exclusive, hard-to-get item? This is a massive decision that says everything about your brand. On one extreme, you have exclusive distribution. We're talking luxury brands here. Think about trying to buy a Ferrari. You can't just walk into any car dealership, right? The whole point is scarcity. It's about controlling the brand image, creating prestige, and making sure the customer experience is absolutely top-notch through just a handful of very, very carefully chosen partners. Then you've got the middle ground, selective distribution. This isn't about being everywhere, but it's not about being impossible to find either. Think about a brand like Coach. They don't sell their bags in Walmart, but you can find them in high-end department stores that fit their brand. It's a strategic choice, a balance between getting enough reach while still protecting the brand's premium feel. And finally, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got intensive distribution. This is the playbook for companies like Coca-Cola. The goal is simple: be everywhere. You want your product to be, as they say, within arm's reach of desire. Vending machines, supermarkets, gas stations, you name it. Here, it's all about convenience and maximum availability. And this ties into another fundamental choice you have to make. What kind of channel partners do you want? Do you want value-added channels? Think of a high-end store like Neiman Marcus that provides amazing service and a beautiful shopping experience. Or do you want streamlined channels like a Costco or an Aldi that are all about efficiency and low prices? These aren't just different stores, they represent two completely different business models: high margin, low volume, or low margin, high volume. Your channel choice has to reflect that. Okay, so far we've been talking about structure and strategy, which is all well and good. But now we've got to get into the messy part, the human element. Because as soon as you bring partners into the mix, you're not just managing logistics anymore, you're managing relationships. And relationships, well, they come with power struggles and conflict. It's just inevitable.
And what's fascinating is how the balance of power has completely flipped over the years. Back in the day, the big manufacturers held all the cards. They had the brand, they had the power, but today, oh man, the power has shifted dramatically to the retailers, the ones who control access to the customer. We're talking about the Walmarts and, of course, the 800-pound gorilla, Amazon. They own the customer, they own the data, and that gives them unbelievable leverage. So when you have these power dynamics, conflict is bound to pop up. And it usually comes in two main flavors. First, you've got vertical conflict. That's tension up and down the same channel, like between you, the manufacturer, and your retailer. Maybe you want them to stock your whole product line, but they only want to carry the two items that sell like hotcakes. Then you've got horizontal conflict. This is drama between partners at the same level, say two different retailers selling your stuff. One of them starts a huge price war, and suddenly your brand's value is getting dragged through the mud. Knowing how to navigate both of these is absolutely key. All right, let's wrap this up by looking at the end game, the long-term evolution of channels. Because these systems are never static, right? They're always changing. The smartest companies are constantly thinking about how to integrate, how to gain more control, and how to set themselves up for the future. And there are really two big ways this happens. The first is vertical integration. This is when you buy a company at a different level in the chain. Maybe you're a manufacturer and you buy a retail chain. Why? For one reason: control. You want to control how your product gets to the customer. The other path is horizontal integration. That's when you buy a competitor at the same level. The perfect example is Amazon buying Whole Foods. The goal there isn't really control in the same way. It's about scale, getting into new markets, and knocking out a competitor. Both are massive, game-changing moves. And this all comes back to a really powerful idea, captured perfectly in this quote. Look, the functions of distribution, storing things, delivering them, handling customer service, they don't just disappear. Somebody has to do them. You can't get rid of the work. The real strategic question, the one you have to ask yourself, is who is the best person or company in this entire chain to do each specific job? It's not about if, it's about who. Which brings us to the final critical question you need to ask about your own business. Is your distribution channel a true competitive advantage, something that's actively building your brand and creating value? Or is it a liability? A clunky old system that's holding you back and might just sink you as the market changes? Because how you answer that question, well, that's going to determine whether you win or lose.